network, you understand the way the member acts, and the way the mutual credit system works, and the value inside of the mutual system works. This part is part of the capital, the social capital creation. There is the driving force when the member became an active member in the self-organization network. That means that he has the possibility to choose the other member inside to become a new potential member. In fact, the broker say every day that they have the power to influence the new potential member. If we look inside of the success rate, if we have a recommendation from a family or friends, it's higher, around 90%. This is an indicator of the role of the truster in the scalability process mechanisms of the network. I want to give you an example of trust between members and how trust in the brokers give the possibility to go outside of a difficult situation. In this case, it's a real case. It's a case we have done. We have a member with a high positive balance sheet, and member it was next to go to bankrupt. So the brokers, because knows both situations, decide to give an advice to the members with a higher balance sheet and propose to buy 2 businesses from the other members, one B&B and one restaurant, and then we make the operation. Probably this operation will be happen also in the real economy, but in not so friendly way. Also, it probably is going to be more expensive. Sometimes we have trust to trust. We have less than 10 cases of legal action between members, but sometimes we have some free riders problem. Example is members try to don't follow in the contract rules of the parity of the price between euros and the Sardex. It's interesting that the alert is arrived from the other members who give to the broker this alert. Hey, there is some guys don't follow these rules. Goes on. But another type of important of free riders is that around 30% of the members in the network don't already be active members. So they have positive and negative balances and don't use the credit to make transaction. But how the system can be continuous to grow with so a big problem of free riders? It continues to grow because the sum of the credit line given by the system is equal to 1% of the turnover from the business. So it still continues to grow in this dynamic where trust is the driving force. Also, it's still resilient. It's been consistent in the time. It continues to grow. Fine. Finished? Yeah. Okay.
We've got plenty of time for questions. May I put a question? How do you pay brokers and CTAs?
Brokers are employer from the employees.
So you pay them salary?
Yeah, I pay them salary. The CTAs, no, are the consulting paid by success fees on the contract. They made a contract, they signed a new contract for a new member. Yeah, the commission.
How much?
It depends on the size of the contract because the annual fee is variable in function of the size of the company.
And roughly what salary brokers get? I need to
A normal Italian salary is around 100 to 2,000 euros. Normally one. Normal one.
Anyone else?
I've got a question. Maybe you can hear me from here. Well, you said that trust is what brings what makes your system grow, right? But what are the main reasons for businesses to join such a system in the first place?
Actually, the first step always is economic. They see an economic benefit to go inside the network, and after then, when the member is inside the network, is try to understand the difference of not only an economic benefit, but also the relations between the members who have the same difficulty to operate in the normal economy, in the local economy. So they understand that help each other. How many credit I give to other members in my region, because it's my region, all the circuit is localized in a different region of Italy. And so the value created by the same member stay in the territory. So this part create the trust to create idea that I help my territory to grow. Yeah.
In numbers, what happens is that when a company joins the circuit, the number of customers and the turnover goes up by about 10%, in spite of the fact that there is 100% tax transparency. So they pay tax in euros, okay? But even with that, their turnover goes up. They gain in clients that they wouldn't have had. These are clients from the circuit. They may be from another part of the island. They wouldn't have gone to their shop if it wasn't for the circuit. Okay.
So is it correct to say that the first reason is an economic reason?
Yes, the first reason is definitely economic. And what I just described is called import substitution in economics. Okay, and it's usually regarded as a negative thing because it militates against competition. Okay, so in the long term, it's not necessarily positive, but for a weak economy with a negative trade balance in a time of crisis, it's an extremely positive thing.
Thank you.
I came in late, so I'm sorry if you already said this, but were there any like sectors or industries that you found were difficult or still are difficult to get into your network?
Well, okay, so it depends on the region and the context. In the case of Sardinia, what happens is that it's an island, and therefore a lot of the goods are imported from Italy. So generally, the sectors that require importing are more problematic because they have to pay in euros. So, for example, a tire wholesaler, it will have a distribution network on the island of people who are very, eager to buy the tires from the wholesaler paying in credits. But the wholesaler ends up having a huge positive balance, and they don't know how to spend it because they can only pay their tires in euros when they buy them from Michelin or wherever. So that is one of the problems that needs to be addressed, and there are different ways to do it by trying inter-circuit trade. But this is a deeper economic issue that can only be solved, I think, once you essentially help that local economy develop all the sectors. Okay, so in long term, there is no fix. You actually have to grow the whole economy.
I think it's been answered. Okay? Yeah, been answered. Then.
Yes, yeah, I have heard that you enlarge the system to B2C to include consumers paying in Sardex. Not yet, but it's a project.
It's about to start.
Yes, and so you entrepreneurs pays wages with Sardex.
That's B2E, business to employees.
See, B2E, it's already. But what do they do with this money, employees?
I cut my hair.
Okay. So you have they can use. Okay.
Thanks. Again, I came in late, so sorry if you already mentioned this, but are there specific ways in which you build trust with among the participants of the mutual credit system? Or just do you make them meet each other? Do you or they do it by themselves? Or
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
So there are events like cocktails that are organized by the brokers or by a particular member that perhaps is into catering. Okay, so things like that happen, but they're mostly like networking events like you would have in a normal business context. What tends to happen is that because there is trust in the central mediator, this is a case where trust appears to be transitive to some extent. And I think another thing that really helps is the fact that the brokers do not get a commission. Okay, therefore there's a lot of trust towards the brokers. They're seen as problem solvers. But I might ask maybe Laura to say a couple more things. No, given Laura is a sociologist who works on trust, and she has written on Sardex, so maybe you can add to that.
All right, so I can say that once this first relationship has been built, it's a kind of self-building and self-sustaining community building, because people understand the role of mediators, of brokers, and then they feel like being part of the a family. So instead of having a transaction with the parity of good, instead of having a transaction with somebody that they don't know, they definitely trust you, even though they never met you in a networking event and so on. So being part, as we said before, the first reason to enter the circuit is economic. But then, as soon as you realize how to transact, you become part of a family, you become part of a bigger network, and then this is a self-reinforcing mechanism. If this might...
Actually, a question following what you just